Commander HFY stood on the bridge of the Ark ship Eternal Dawn, staring at the dying stars outside. His clawed hands shook as he held the communication device. 3 years ago, he was a proud warrior of the Catharian fleet. Now he was about to beg strangers for help. Behind him, the bridge crew worked quietly. Their blue-scaled faces showed the same exhaustion he felt. The 17 Ark ships of their Exodus fleet carried the last survivors of their world. 2.3 million souls fleeing from death itself. The Crimson Devourer had taken everything. Their home star, their planets, their colonies. The ancient enemy called the hegemony had unleashed this weapon of dark matter. It ate light, ate matter, ate hope. The cascade spread through their system like a disease, consuming everything they had ever known. Commander, his communications officer spoke softly. The children's ward on Deck 12 is asking for more medicine again. HFY closed his eyes. They had been rationing medicine for months now. Food, too. The life support systems were failing on half their ships. The youngest ones were dying first, their small bodies unable to fight the cold and thin air. Tell them we will find more. He lied. There was no more medicine. There was no more time. He activated the long-range transmitter. The message would travel across the galaxy, reaching every known civilization. It would be heard by species that controlled thousands of worlds, commanded fleets of mighty warships, possessed technology beyond imagination. This is Commander HFY of the Catharian Exodus fleet, he began, his voice breaking. We are refugees from the Crimson Devourer. Our fleet carries 2.3 million survivors, including 800,000 children. Our life support is failing. We have food for perhaps 2 more months. We request immediate assistance. We will share our technology, our knowledge, anything we have. Please, someone help us. The transmission went out into the void. Now they could only wait. The first response came from the consortium 3 days later. These were the traders and bankers of the galaxy, species that had turned commerce into art. Their reply was cold and mathematical. Catharian fleet. This is Consortium Trade Authority. Analysis shows assisting your fleet would require resources worth approximately 47 billion standard credits. Current market projections indicate 0 return on investment. Additionally, association with hegemony targets carry significant risk to consortium assets. Request denied. Good fortune in your endeavors. HFY had expected this. The consortium cared only for profit. But others would surely help. The ethereal collective responded next. These beings of pure thought had powers beyond physical understanding. They could move objects with their minds, speak across vast distances without technology, see into possible futures. Children of Kithera, came their response, delivered by strange harmonics that hurt to hear. We have gazed upon your spirits in the cosmic flow. Your psychic resonance vibrates with frequencies of violence and warrior pride. Such energies would poison our meditative realms. We cannot permit your kind among us. Seek harmony elsewhere. The machine empire called Nexus Prime sent their answer through pure data stream. Cold numbers and calculations filled the screens. Catharian fleet survival probability, 0.003%. Resource expenditure for rescue attempt, 743 million energy units. Logical assessment, assistance illogical. Alternative suggestion, accept honorable death in void rather than prolonged suffering. This unit has spoken. One by one the responses came in. The Star Kingdom was at war and could spare no ships. The Federation of Free Worlds cited their non-interference policies. The Crystal Hegemony claimed the Catharians were too biologically different to survive in their environments. 23 different civilizations. 23 refusals. HFY sat in his command chair, feeling older than his 67 years. Around him, his crew continued their work, but he could see the defeat in their movements. Hope was a luxury they could no longer afford. Commander, the communications officer called out, surprise in her voice. We have another response. From who? HFY asked, though he no longer cared. Another refusal would change nothing. Unknown civilization. The signal is coming from a system at galactic coordinates 774.9. The transmission identifies itself as Earth? HFY frowned. He had never heard of this Earth place. He checked the galactic databases. A small blue world in an unremarkable star system. Single species. Barely 100 years into space travel. Their entire fleet consisted of perhaps 50 ships, all primitive by galactic standards. What do they say? The communications officer looked confused as she read the message. Commander, they say they are coming to help us. What? HFY stood up quickly. Read it again. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Colonial Fleet. We have received your distress call and are mobilizing rescue operations immediately. Hold position and maintain life support as best you can. Help is on the way. Repeat, help is on the way. Do not lose hope. The bridge fell silent. Finally, the tactical officer spoke up. Commander, according to our files, the human fleet has only 49 ships total. How can they rescue 2.3 million people with 49 ships? SciFi stared at the message on his screen. These humans were offering to do what 23 advanced civilizations had refused to attempt. With technology centuries behind the others. With a fleet smaller than some species used for patrol duty. I do not know, he said quietly. But they are the only ones who answered yes. He composed a reply, his hands no longer shaking. Admiral Chen, this is Commander HFY. We are grateful for your response. However, you should know that our situation is desperate. We have over 2 million people who need evacuation. Our ships are failing, and the hegemony hunter fleets may still be tracking us. Are you certain you wish to attempt this rescue? The human response came back within hours, faster than light communication across half the galaxy. Commander, we understand the risks and the numbers. We are coming anyway. Nobody dies alone on our watch. Admiral Chen out. HFY read the message 3 times. Then he called his senior staff together and told them that somehow, impossibly, help was coming. From a species they had never heard of. From a world at the edge of nowhere. The humans were coming. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the command center of Luna Station, looking at the massive display screen that showed the entire human fleet. 49 ships. Every vessel humanity had ever built for deep space travel. It was not nearly enough. Admiral, her aide Colonel Martinez approached with another stack of reports. We have the final numbers from Earth. 312 vessels have volunteered for the rescue mission. Sarah looked at the list. The Meridian Princess, a luxury cruise ship that normally carried tourists to Mars. The Iron Mountain, a heavy mining ship designed to crack asteroids. The Academic Progress, a research vessel that had been studying Jupiter's moons. Even the Lucky Dragon, a private yacht owned by a tech billionaire. They know this might be a one-way trip? She asked. Every captain was told directly. Not one of them backed out. The cruise ship captain, Roberto Silva, said he spent 30 years helping people have fun. Now he wants to help them live. Sarah nodded. In the past 3 weeks, humanity had done something that surprised even her. Corporate executives had liquidated entire companies to fund the mission. Shipyards worked around the clock, converting any vessel that could carry people. The tourist ship Meridian Princess now had life support for 8,000 passengers instead of its normal 2,000. What about crews? Over 50,000 volunteers. Retired military, merchant marine officers, even civilian pilots. A lot of them have never been past the asteroid belt, but they all want to help. Sarah looked at Earth through the observation deck. Her homeworld was mobilizing like it was fighting for its own survival. Because in a way it was, the Catharians were not human, but they were people asking for help. That was enough. She activated the fleet-wide communication system. 312 ships, scattered across the solar system, all preparing for a journey to the edge of known space. This is Admiral Chen to all vessels. In 18 hours, we depart for the Catharian fleet position. I want everyone to understand what we are attempting. We are going to evacuate over 2 million refugees using ships that were never designed for this mission. We will be operating at the very limits of our technology, in space controlled by hostile forces. She paused, looking at the faces on her screen, captains and crew from every corner of human space, military officers and civilian volunteers. People who had signed up to save strangers they would never have met otherwise. But here is what I know about human beings. When someone is in trouble, we help. When someone is lost, we find them. When someone is dying alone in the dark, we bring them home. That is who we are. That is who we have always been. The fleet departed 18 hours later. It was not the neat formation that military textbooks recommended. The human vessels traveled in groups based on their capabilities. Fast military cruisers scouted ahead. The converted passenger ships stayed in the center, protected by freighters that had been fitted with defensive systems. The journey took 3 weeks. During that time, the human crews worked constantly to modify their ships. Engineers redesigned life support systems to handle alien biology. Medical teams studied Catharian physiology using the data from their distress calls. Even the children aboard the family ships helped. learning Catharian language from computer programs. When they finally reached the Catharian fleet, Sarah felt her heart break. The alien ships were magnificent, each one the size of a human city. But they were clearly dying. Their hull plating was dull and cracked. Their engines flickered weakly. These were the tomb ships of a civilization that had run out of time. "This is Admiral Chen to Commander HFY. We have arrived." The response came quickly. "Admiral Chen, we see your ships. But there are so many of you. How is this possible?" Sarah smiled. "Commander, when we told our people about your situation, they all wanted to help. We brought everyone who could fly a ship." On the screen, she could see the alien commander's face. His blue-scaled features showed confusion and something that might have been hope. "Admiral, our people are scattered across 17 ships. Many are sick. Our children are dying. How can you possibly evacuate so many with your vessels?" "One person at a time, Commander. One person at a time." What followed was organized chaos. The human ships docked with the Catharian Ark vessels wherever possible. Where docking was impossible, they used shuttlecraft and even spacesuits to transfer people. The cruise ship Meridian Princess became a floating hospital, its restaurants converted to medical bays. Captain Kim Patel of the research vessel Deep Explorer found herself evacuating a Catharian nursery. Her ship, designed for a crew of 50, suddenly held 800 alien children and their caretakers. Her crew worked in shifts, teaching the young Catharians how to use human toilets and eat human food. The mining ship Iron Mountain took on 15,000 adult refugees. Captain Lisa Zhang had never seen her cargo holds used to carry people before, but her crew quickly installed temporary life support and sleeping areas. The Catharians marveled at the human ability to make anything work with enough determination and spare parts. But it was slow work. "Too slow. Admiral," Commander HFY called Sarah after 5 days of evacuation. "Our long-range sensors are detecting something. Multiple contacts moving toward our position." Sarah felt cold dread in her stomach. "How many contacts?" 12 large vessels. The configuration matches hegemony hunter-killer fleets. Sarah looked at her tactical display. They had evacuated nearly 400,000 Catharians so far. Still over 1.5 million to go. The human ships were overcrowded and vulnerable, and now the hegemony was coming to finish what they had started. "How long until they arrive?" 47 hours, Admiral." Sarah did quick calculations in her head. At their current rate, they would need at least another week to complete the evacuation. They did not have a week. They had less than 2 days. She opened a channel to all human ships. "All vessels, this is Admiral Chen. Hegemony forces are approaching our position. We have 47 hours to complete evacuation of all Catharian refugees. I know that seems impossible. I know our ships are already beyond their limits." She looked out at the stars, thinking of her daughter back on Earth, thinking of all the families who had sent their loved ones on this mission. "But we did not come this far to leave anyone behind. Increase evacuation rate by any means necessary. Strip unnecessary systems if you need more life support. Use every shuttle, every escape pod, every available space. We are going to get every single one of these people to safety." The human fleet responded like she knew they would. Captain Silva on the Meridian Princess had his crew remove furniture and even wall panels to make more room. The military cruisers began transferring their ammunition to make space for refugees. 47 hours. Over 1 million people still to save. And somewhere in the darkness, the hegemony was coming. Sarah Chen had never been more proud to be human. Overlord Vexthul stood in the command center of his dreadnought Death's Crown, watching the tactical display with cold satisfaction. 12 massive hegemony warships approached the location where the Catharian survivors were hiding. Soon the last remnants of that pathetic species would be destroyed. "Overlord," his tactical officer reported. "We are detecting unexpected contacts near the Catharian fleet. The signatures do not match any known configuration." Vexthul moved his 6-foot frame closer to the display. His red eyes, adapted for seeing in the dark spaces between stars, studied the readings. "Show me." The screen lit up with hundreds of small contacts surrounding the Catharian Ark ships. Most were tiny, barely the size of escort vessels. A few were larger, but nothing compared to the massive dreadnoughts of his hunter fleet. Analysis indicates these are vessels from a species called humans. According to our databases, they are a primitive civilization from the Outer Rim. Single planet, barely 1 century of space travel. Vexthul laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Humans? They dare interfere with hegemony operations? How many ships? Over 300, Overlord. But they appear to be mostly civilian vessels. Cargo ships, passenger craft, research vessels. Their largest warships are smaller than our destroyers. This was amusing. Some backward species had stumbled into a military operation and would now be crushed along with the Catharians. Vexthal had conquered 47 worlds for the hegemony. He had destroyed fleets 10 times more powerful than this collection of primitive ships. Open communications. I will give them a chance to flee before we destroy them. The transmission went out on all frequencies. Vexthal stood tall as he delivered his message, knowing these humans would see the might of the hegemony and run like all the others. Unknown vessels. This is Overlord Vexthal of the Hegemony 3rd Hunter Fleet. You are interfering with a sanctioned elimination operation against enemy refugees. You have one opportunity to withdraw from this system. Any vessel remaining after 30 minutes will be destroyed without further warning. The reply came back almost immediately, a single female voice speaking with a calm confidence that surprised him. This is Admiral Sarah Chen to all Hegemony vessels. You have 30 minutes to turn around and leave. This is your only warning. Vexthal stared at the communications panel. Had he heard correctly? This primitive admiral was threatening him? He activated visual communications to see what manner of creature had such audacity. The screen showed a human female, perhaps middle-aged by the look of her. She sat in what appeared to be the bridge of a small warship, surrounded by other humans. They looked so ordinary. No claws, no armor plates, no obvious weapons. Just soft-skinned mammals in simple uniforms. Admiral Chen, Vexthal spoke slowly, as if addressing a child. You command 300 primitive vessels against 12 hegemony dreadnoughts. Each of my ships carries enough firepower to destroy your entire fleet. Withdraw now and I will allow your species to live. The human admiral smiled. Actually smiled. As if he had told her something amusing instead of threatening her extinction. Overlord, let me explain something to you. These people behind me are refugees. They are fleeing from your kind because you destroyed their homes and murdered their families. They asked for help and we said yes. That means we are going to get them to safety. She leaned forward in her chair. Now I have been polite and given you a chance to leave. You have 28 minutes to take it. Vexthal felt rage building in his chest. No species had ever spoken to the hegemony this way. Not even the mighty consortium dared to challenge them directly. Admiral, you are about to learn why every species in the galaxy fears the hegemony. Your ships are toys. Your weapons are primitive. You cannot possibly believe you can defeat us. The human woman nodded thoughtfully. You know you are probably right about our ships and weapons. But you made one mistake in your calculations. What mistake? You assumed we care about surviving this fight more than we care about keeping our word. The transmission ended. Vexthal stared at the blank screen for a moment. Then he turned to his fleet commander. All ships, attack formation. Destroy every human vessel. Show them what happens when primitives challenge the hegemony. The 12 massive dreadnoughts moved forward, their weapons charging. Each ship was over 2 kilometers long, armored with crystalline plating that could withstand direct hits from plasma cannons. Their firepower could crack continents, but as they approached, something strange happened. The human ships did not run. Instead, they moved to intercept the hegemony fleet. The attack began with the humans doing something Vexthal had never seen before. Instead of forming neat battle lines like proper warships, they scattered in all directions. Small groups of vessels moved behind asteroids, used the Catharian arc ships as cover, even hid in the sensor shadows of his own dreadnoughts. Overlord. They are not fighting like a military force. Their movements appear random. Vexthal watched in confusion as human ships darted between his vessels like insects. They fired missiles from impossible angles, used their smaller size to avoid his main weapons, and coordinated their attacks in ways that made no tactical sense. A converted human cargo ship, the Lucky Strike, appeared from behind an asteroid and fired mining charges directly at his flagship's sensor array. The charges were designed to break rocks, not fight warships, but they created electromagnetic interference that blinded his targeting systems. How did they get so close? Vexthal demanded. They are using our own mass to hide from our sensors, Overlord. They are fighting from inside our formation. This was impossible. Military doctrine clearly stated that smaller ships should not engage larger ones at close range. It was suicide. But the humans were doing it anyway, and somehow making it work. A luxury cruise ship, the Meridian Princess, suddenly appeared alongside the destroyer Cruel Blade. Instead of engaging with weapons, the cruise ship opened its docking bays and launched hundreds of small craft. Not fighters, but maintenance pods, emergency shuttles, even personal vehicles. The tiny craft swarmed over the destroyer like insects, welding torch beams cutting through sensor dishes and communication arrays. The destroyer's captain tried to use point defense weapons, but they were designed to shoot down missiles, not repair pods moving in random patterns. Overlord, the Cruel Blade reports total systems failure. They are dead in space. Vexthul felt something he had not experienced in decades of conquest. Uncertainty. These humans were not fighting like any enemy he had ever faced. They used civilian ships as weapons, improvised tactics that no military academy would teach, and seemed completely willing to sacrifice themselves for temporary advantages. A human research vessel rammed one of his destroyers, detonating its reactor in the collision. Both ships were destroyed, but the explosion damaged two other hegemony vessels. "Sir, the humans are requesting communication." "Put them through." Admiral Chen appeared on screen again. Her ship showed battle damage, but she was still smiling. "Overlord, how are you enjoying your first fight with humans? Your tactics are chaotic, undisciplined. You fight like savages." "Thank you," Chen replied. "That was exactly what we were going for." Before Vexthul could respond, alarms began screaming throughout his flagship. The tactical display showed human ships converging on his position from 6 different directions. "All ships concentrate fire on the human flagship," he ordered. "Which one, Overlord? They all look the same." Vexthul looked at the display. The humans had no clear command structure, no obvious flagship. Every ship seemed capable of independent action. It was then that he realized these humans had been studying hegemony tactics while he had dismissed them as primitives. They knew exactly how his fleet would fight, and they had planned for it. The battle was about to take a very different turn. Captain Sarah Kim gripped the controls of her mining ship Asteroid Dancer as she dove toward the hegemony destroyer Night Terror. Her vessel was never meant for combat, but 3 weeks ago she had been hauling ice from Europa's surface. Today she was fighting for the lives of 2 million refugees. "Sarah, you have 6 fighters on your tail," her crew chief Martinez warned from the engineering station. "I see them. Hold on to something." Sarah pulled her ship into a spiral dive that would have torn apart a normal spacecraft. But mining ships were built to survive asteroid impacts and solar radiation. The hegemony fighters designed for space combat could not match her maneuvers in the asteroid field. She watched her rear display as 2 enemy fighters crashed into tumbling rocks, their pilots unable to navigate the chaotic environment that Sarah had worked in for 15 years. Targeting the destroyer's weapons array. "Get ready with the mining charges." The Night Terror was 5 times larger than her ship, its hull covered with plasma cannons that could vaporize her in seconds. But Sarah had spent her career learning how to approach dangerous objects in space. She used the asteroid field like cover, hiding behind spinning rocks until she was close enough to strike. Now, Martinez fired a full spread of mining charges, explosive devices meant to crack open asteroids for processing. They struck the destroyer's weapon mounts and detonated in brilliant flashes. The charges could not penetrate the ship's main armor, but they destroyed the delicate targeting sensors and communication arrays. "Their weapons are blind," Sarah announced on the fleet channel. "All ships concentrate fire on the Night Terror." Across the battlefield, other human captains pressed their attacks. Captain Roberto Silva of the cruise ship Meridian Princess was using his vessel's oversized communication array to hack into hegemony fleet coordination systems. Roberto had spent 30 years as a cruise director, managing complex schedules and passenger systems. The hegemony fleet network was just another computer system to him, though one with better security. "Got their fire control," he announced as his fingers flew over the keyboard. "Uploading virus to their targeting computers now." The massive hegemony dreadnought Death's Crown suddenly began firing on its own escort ships. Its weapon systems, infected with Roberto's improvised virus, could no longer distinguish friend from enemy. "Roberto, you magnificent bastard," Admiral Chen's voice crackled over the communications. "All ships press the attack while they are confused." But the most shocking sight was what happened when human ships were destroyed. Commander Zephi watched from his Arkship bridge as a human escort vessel took a direct hit from a plasma cannon. The ship broke apart, its crew escaping in small pods. Any rational species would flee to safety. Instead, the human escape pods began coordinating rescue efforts for other damaged ships. They used their emergency flares to blind enemy sensors, their small thrusters to ram into hegemony fighters, their distress beacons to confuse enemy missiles. "Admiral Chen," HFY called over the communication channel. "Your people. Why do they continue fighting even when their ships are destroyed?" Sarah Chen's image appeared on his screen. Behind her, he could see the chaos of human battle coordination. Officers shouting orders, damage reports coming in from across the fleet, tactical displays showing the impossible complexity of the engagement. "Commander, let me tell you something about humans. We are pack hunters. When one of us falls, the others do not run. They get angry. And when humans get angry, we stop thinking about our own safety." As if to prove her point, a series of explosions lit up the space near the hegemony flagship. HFY watched in amazement as he realized what was happening. Admiral Chen was ordering ramming attacks on the enemy dreadnought. But she was not using military vessels. She was using the evacuation ships, now empty of passengers, piloted by volunteers on suicide runs. The converted passenger liner Star of Mumbai accelerated toward the hegemony flagship at full speed. Captain Lisa Park had already transferred her 8,000 Catharian refugees to other ships. Now she and her volunteer crew were turning their vessel into a guided missile. "This is Captain Park to all ships. It has been an honor serving with you. Tell Earth that the Star of Mumbai completed her mission." The ship struck the dreadnought's forward section with the force of a small asteroid. The explosion tore through 3 decks and destroyed the main sensor array. Seconds later, the freight hauler Iron Dreams, piloted by Captain James Foster, crashed into the dreadnought's engine section. Then the research vessel Deep Thought, commanded by Dr. Elena Rodriguez, hit the weapons control center. 12 human ships, their crews dead or evacuated, slammed into the hegemony flagship in a coordinated assault that no military academy in the galaxy would have approved. It was wasteful, inefficient, and tactically insane. It was also devastatingly effective. Overlord Vexthol felt his mighty flagship shudder under the impacts. Damage reports flooded in from across the ship. Engineering sections were on fire. The main weapons were offline. His communication array was destroyed. "All ships retreat to safe distance," he ordered. But half his fleet could no longer receive his commands. The human virus had spread through their networks, turning their own technology against them. The destroyer Cruel Blade was still trying to shake off the swarm of maintenance pods that covered its hull like mechanical parasites. The dreadnought Bone Crusher fired wildly in all directions, its targeting systems completely compromised. But the humans were not finished. Admiral Chen opened a channel to the entire battlefield, her voice carrying to every ship on both sides. "All human vessels, this is Admiral Chen. We have them on the run. But remember why we are here. Our mission is to protect the refugees, not to destroy the enemy. Cover the evacuation ships and prepare for withdrawal." Vexthul stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The humans were winning. His superior technology, his advanced weapons, his centuries of military doctrine, all useless against an enemy that refused to fight by the rules. But even more shocking was what they did next. Instead of pressing their advantage and destroying his crippled fleet, the humans began to withdraw. They were choosing to save lives rather than claim victory. "Overlord," his communications officer reported, "the humans are requesting a channel. Put them through." Admiral Chen appeared on screen one final time. Her ship showed heavy damage, but her expression was calm and determined. "Overlord Vexthol, you have 2 choices. You can retreat now and report to your superiors that the human species is not to be underestimated. Or you can continue this fight and discover exactly how creative humans can be when we are truly motivated." Behind her, Vexthul could see the evacuation continuing. The remaining human ships were still taking on Catharian refugees even while damaged and battle-scarred. "This is not over, Admiral." "No, it is not," Chen agreed. "But it is over for today. And today was all we needed." Vexthul gave the order to withdraw. As his battered fleet limped away from the battlefield, he composed his report to Hegemony High Command. He would tell them about the feral mammals who fought like devils and died laughing. He would warn them that humanity was unlike any enemy they had ever faced. Behind him, the human rescue fleet continued its impossible mission, pulling the last survivors from the dying Ark ships and carrying them toward safety. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the small, seemingly weak species were the most dangerous of all. Commander HFY walked through the gardens of New Geneva Colony, watching human and Catharian children play together under the warm sun of Kepler 442b. 6 months had passed since the rescue, and he still found it hard to believe they were all alive. The colony was a marvel of cooperation. Catharian crystal-growing technology merged with human agricultural methods to create crops that fed both species. Human engineers worked alongside Catharian biotechnicians to design new types of buildings that could house families from both worlds. A small human girl with bright red hair ran past him, chasing a young Catharian, whose blue scales glittered in the sunlight. They were playing some kind of tag game, laughing in the way that only children could. The sound made HFY's heart feel lighter than it had in years. Beautiful sight, is it not? He turned to see Admiral Sarah Chen approaching through the garden paths. She looked different now, wearing civilian clothes instead of her military uniform. The stress lines around her eyes had softened, though new scars on her hands told the story of their recent battles. Admiral Chen, I was hoping to find you today. Just Sarah now. I retired from active duty last month. The Colonial Authority asked me to help coordinate the integration programs. She joined him on the bench, looking out at the playing children. How are your people adapting? Better than I hoped. The children especially. They learn so quickly. HFY pointed to a group where human and Catharian youngsters were building something together with blocks and crystal formations. Yesterday, my nephew asked me if his human friend Jenny could come to his naming ceremony. On our world, such ceremonies were only for family. Sarah smiled. What did you tell him? I said yes, of course. Jenny helped save his life by making room on her family's ship. That makes her family too. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the everyday miracle of two species learning to live as one. In the distance, construction crews worked on expanding the colony. Half were human workers in environmental suits. Half were Catharian builders using their natural ability to shape crystalline materials. Sarah, HFY said finally, I must ask you something. I have asked this question many times, but I still do not understand the answer. What question? Why did your people help us? Every other species in the galaxy had logical reasons to refuse. The consortium worried about profit. The ethereals feared contamination. The machines calculated our survival as unlikely. But humans? You just said yes, why? Sarah was quiet for a long moment, thinking. She picked up a small stone from the garden path and rolled it between her fingers. Do you know the story of how humans became the dominant species on Earth? I know you evolved from hunter-gatherers. Most species have similar origins. Yes, but we were not the strongest hunters on our world. They were creatures with bigger teeth, faster speed, better senses. We should have been prey animals hiding in caves and hoping the real predators would not find us. She tossed the stone into a small pond, watching the ripples spread across the water. But we had one advantage. When a human tribe found another group in trouble, starving or under attack, we helped them. Not because it made economic sense. Not because we could gain something from them. We helped because leaving people to suffer alone felt wrong. A young Catharian boy ran up to them, holding a flower that seemed to be made of living crystal. He offered it to Sarah with the formal bow his species used for greeting elders. Thank you, Keltar, Sarah said, accepting the gift with the proper response gesture. The boy beamed with pride and ran back to his friends. You see, HFY observed. Your people even learn our customs. That is the other thing about humans. We adapt, we learn, we change. Sarah tucked the crystal flower into her jacket. Those hunting tribes I mentioned? They grew into villages, then cities, then nations. And every time they faced a crisis, the groups that survived were the ones who helped each other. They watched as Captain Roberto Silva walked past, leading a group of mixed human and Catharian teenagers. He was teaching them about starship navigation, using his hands to show how orbital mechanics worked. The young people asked questions in a mixture of languages, and Roberto answered each one with patience. I heard that Captain Silva is opening a flight school, HFY mentioned. Roberto says the next generation should learn to fly ships designed by both our species, human intuition and Catharian precision, working together. Sarah pointed to another area where Captain Sarah Kim was showing Catharian engineers how to modify mining equipment. Sarah thinks we can develop new asteroid harvesting techniques that are more efficient than either of our old methods. And Captain Park? She survived the ramming attack on the Hegemony flagship. Lisa is running the colony's transportation system now. Turns out managing passenger logistics is useful whether your passengers are tourists or refugees. HFY marveled at how easily the humans had transitioned from rescuers to neighbors. There had been cultural conflicts, of course. Misunderstandings about food, customs, personal space, but every problem was met with patience and creativity, rather than anger or rejection. Sarah, there is something else I must tell you. We have been monitoring galactic communications. The story of our rescue has spread to every known civilization. Sarah raised an eyebrow. What kind of story? The hegemony has been forced to slow their expansion. Several species have formed mutual defense agreements inspired by humanity's example. The consortium is facing economic instability because their shareholders suddenly care about moral considerations in their investments. And the others? The ethereal collective has retreated even further into isolation. They cannot comprehend creatures who choose compassion over logic. The machine empires are running new calculations, trying to understand how emotional decisions can produce superior outcomes. Sarah chuckled. We have confused the galaxy by being ourselves. More than that. You have changed it. There are species who had never considered helping strangers before. Now they ask themselves what humans would do in their situation. A chime sounded across the colony, signaling the end of the school day. Human and Catharian children poured out of the learning centers, many of them walking home together in mixed groups. Some families now included adopted children from the other species. Look at them, Sarah said softly. Those children will grow up thinking this is normal, working together, helping each other, treating differences as strengths rather than problems. They will be the first generation of true galactic citizens, HFY agreed. As they walked back toward the colony center, they passed the memorial garden. Simple stones marked the names of everyone who had died during the rescue mission, humans and Catharians who had given their lives to save others. The garden was tended by volunteers from both species. Sometimes I think about the evacuation, HFY said, stopping at one of the memorial stones. All those people who volunteered for a mission they knew might kill them. Just to help strangers, Sarah touched the stone gently. It bore the name of Captain James Foster, who had piloted the freight hauler Iron Dreams into the Hegemony dreadnought. James had 3 children back on Earth. When I asked him why he volunteered for the ramming attack, he said it was because he wanted his kids to live in a galaxy where people help each other. And now they do. Now they do. As the sun set over New Geneva Colony, Sarah and HFY walked home through streets filled with the sounds of 2 species living as one. Catharian crystal music mixed with human laughter. The smell of human cooking blended with Catharian incense. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The hegemony was still out there, wounded but not defeated. Other species still watched humanity with suspicion or curiosity. The integration of 2 different civilizations would continue to create problems that needed creative solutions. But tonight, in this one small corner of the galaxy, the future looked bright. Children of 2 species played together under alien stars, learning that the universe was vast and often dangerous, but it was also full of people worth saving. And sometimes, if you were very lucky and very brave, you got to be the ones who answered when someone called for help. In his final report to the Catharian Historical Archive, Commander HFY wrote, "We learned that the galaxy contains many species with advanced technology, superior weapons, and logical minds, but only one species that measures its success by how many people it saves rather than how many worlds it conquers. We are proud to call the humans our friends, and we pray that the stars never dim the light of their compassion. The children who played in those gardens would grow up to explore the galaxy, carrying with them the lesson that differences made people stronger, not weaker. They would spread this message to new worlds and new species, changing the very nature of galactic civilization, all because, long ago, when a doomed alien fleet cried for help in the darkness, only the humans had answered.